So we're here with Peter from Drive Sport. How's it going?
It's going well.
Good. We sent our O&E special transmission over to get the limited slip install.
Yeah.
And we kind of got carried away, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, but it's okay. We were just checking the gear set to make sure there's no irregular wear, to check the shift forks.
Yeah.
Everything looks tip-top.
Perfect.
So we're going to put it back together. We'll show you guys the diff right here and how that works.
This is more for us than it is for you because we're going to shoot an input shaft or something at some point. We'll be rebuilding. We'll be doing this in a parking lot somewhere. And I'll have to watch this video to figure out how to do it. So
hopefully it's warm.
Yeah, let's get into it. I can't believe the Audi's completely trashed.
I can't believe you drove it at Daytona with no coolant in it.
If you wouldn't have wrecked the clutch, it'd be fine.
If you knew how to drive, it would have been fine.
This is a chunk car. I built that on my own 2 years ago. So this is for our team. We have four drivers. We race 3 events a year here in Canada. And it's an endurance car, so it ran last September for 15 hours, full throttle. No problem. 3-liter BMW motor. So it's a 6-cylinder.
Nice.
Nothing too crazy. M3 cams.
Yeah.
But we want to keep power reliable. Like you can't have.
No, you can't have both.
So everything's pretty OEM.
Yep.
Other than the ECU. Yeah, it's a great little car. Probably 220 at the wheels, so nothing too wild again, but it's 2,200 pounds. So not terribly light, but this car was a mistake. I still get made fun of for trying to make a Mark III race car. It's got just a 1.8T turbo.
Yep.
So I've done everything to it except the roll cage. This one was everything including the roll cage. And this is where I learned how to do all the wiring and the tuning. It used to be a car that raced in the Canadian Touring Car Championship, and it had a 2-liter naturally aspirated with throttle bodies and a rev to the moon. Rebuilt the whole thing. It was in pretty rough shape, but if it was gone tomorrow, I would not care. What's this? It looks like a...
It is Audi, but it's not from here. Okay, so to recap, we've had this transmission built by Advanced Automotion down in Texas. When I Googled what transmission I needed, somehow I came across that I needed this transmission, and the nice thing was that the flanges for the axles and the diff were the same as what was already on the Audi. So knowing that I could just bolt that together in the time crunch, this is the transmission that we went with. So talking to Scott, he's upgraded this to be able to handle 800 foot-pounds of torque. And so far, this O1E has a TDI main shaft, first and second gear with RS2 ratios. The final drive is a 411. It's got a high bias central differential and upgraded front diff spiders. The only thing that we didn't get is a limited slip front diff. So we got a hold of Peter, and he's the one that supplied the diff, and he said, I'd love to be able to install the diff for you guys and go over the transmission. And as soon as he started into it, we found some shavings on the magnet, and he said, how about we go into it a bit deeper while I'm here and just make sure that the transmission's okay. There's been a lot of messing around with this. It's got TDI bits into it. I've welded the bell housing.
You welded it after you got it from Scott,
Yeah.
right? It may have been compromised, so we just wanted to check that, and it checked out just fine. There's no gulling, there's no ridges, no discoloration. So.
It's like you think I don't know what I'm doing.
No, that's not true.
Now we just want to make sure that we're going to last the season and set up the front diff properly and see if there's anything else that we can spot. Basically, I just want to be able to watch the video again and in case I have to rebuild it when we're on a track somewhere. So that all checks out.
Yeah, everything looks good.
So you've replaced some races?
The differential races, because to salvage the bearing off the old differential, it's not worth the trouble.
Okay.
So we just go ahead and put on new bearing set on both sides and check the backlash. And away we go with the limited slip diff.
So what would this transmission be out of? What would a 6-speed newer gen 01E be out of?
So that would be out of an S4, like a 2002, 2.7 liter twin turbo V6,
Okay.
S4 Audi. In the North American market, the 01E gearboxes were supplied with a very poorly spaced out first and second.
Okay.
So it's meant for like city driving where the engineers think about different things than you and I are thinking about right now, hooting down the track. So the RS2 is a very sought after car in Europe and all over the world. It's a 5-cylinder turbo, makes a lot of jam, and that's what these gears came from. Those are like unobtainium, by the way, those cars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, wild
Well,
cars.
we've had a lot of recommendations. Why didn't you just build the 5-cylinder Audi turbo? And it's like, well,
Yeah.
because they're really expensive.
They're costly to build, but
Yeah.
they can take a lot of power. And there are parts out there that will support the power.
Okay.
Yeah, so well up to 1,000,
Okay.
no problem.
So we've got 411 in the rear end.
Yeah,
So the Audi V8 already came with 411 gears, and
Yeah.
it would have already been 411 in the front diff.
yeah. So and I think the newer stuff comes with 3.7,
Okay.
which is a bit of a dog. So
Yeah.
the desired ratio is the 411.
Right.
Yeah. And the only way to get that ring and pinion, I think, is if you go to like a Porsche 968 and get the NOS part number and
We've got RS2, Porsche bits.
if you wanted to upgrade, like you're lucky you found a car with 411 rear end, and then Scott was able to provide you with the front half of that, right?
Oh,
Because you got to
perfect.
match the two ratios up,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah. Somebody told me I should write a book on like 1,000 uses for sockets. Other than sockets.
So we're gonna clamp it down on the edges here. Just undo these 13s. It's a little J-rig bracket I made.
Patent pending?
Yeah,
Don't
patent
get
pending.
Don't get any ideas?
The reason we put a hose clamp right here is it's two separate shafts. So you'll see the pinion gear turning while these are stationary. So there's a tapered roller bearing in here. And if you let this slide through, so if we would have taken this out of the main case without this hose clamp, 23 little roller bearings would have popped out and we would have been looking for them. So for anyone doing this, that's key. That's a saver. This is a fully assembled core, and I believe the shift collar on 1-2 is locked up on these, which is the most common failure point. Anyways, this is a complete case. So there's 4 components to it. This is where your rear output flange comes through. And then there's this aluminum case here where your center diff is housed. And this is where your gear set really is located in here. And then it's your front diff up here.
Yeah, there's a weird bell housing. I don't recognize
Yeah, what's
it.
going on with this bell
I don't
housing? It doesn't
recognize
look,
it at all.
does not look right. Yeah. This is the
Right,
front.
right.
Your front diff's here.
Yeah.
You're gonna put that on. You're gonna put these gears on, these two. And then your center diff goes over the end of this shaft
Okay.
and here. And then over that you have a tailstock.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the torsion center diff, and that's your output flange that
Okay.
goes to your rear diff. It's pretty cool, eh?
Yeah.
So this is your first and second gear, and this is the shift collar that commonly gets stuck. So that's one thing you're going to want to look for, and it should move fairly freely. And as you can see, this one's rock solid, like it's
Okay,
jammed.
so it's the synchro teeth that like bind or break, or what's going on?
No, it's the splines on the synchro hub
Okay.
that bind up with material,
Ah.
and they just stop functioning.
So before we get any farther, what oil is the best oil to run in?
Factory spec.
Yeah,
Like
'cause
whatever factory says, that's what
even
you run.
with all the upgrades and whatever else.
Yeah, even with the upgrades. Now, if you're going to a clutch plated LSD or the dog gears, that's a different story.
Okay.
Yeah. The clutch plated LSD generates heat, right?
Yeah.
There's friction. So you want a very high grade oil.
Okay, because we were using 75, 90.
So with respect to the grade,
synthetics, yeah.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah?
Most oils will say most gear oils will say whether they're compatible with a limited slip differential. So
Oh,
you want to
okay.
make sure that is something you check.
Okay, and no additives in it.
You can put a friction modifier in it, but if the oil is spec'd for an LSD, I would go without it first, and then if you're getting some chatter, then you can put in the friction modifier.
Okay. We don't have the issue of first and second.
Nope.
But we got into it this far because you saw some stuff on the magnet and you're just a little bit worried.
There was some material on the magnet, so nothing too concerning, but just wanted to check potential source. There was some ferrous material stuck to it, and the only culprit I could find was this bearing race. Now, mind you, these are from two different sides of the diff, but we'd be looking for something like that for a used bearing race. But what we found was this slightly pitted.
Yeah, dull color, not shiny, not reflective. So
to be on the safe side, we're going to replace it, and we did. So we know that can't be a potential source of problem.
Beauty. So this is an open diff. We've got 4 spider gears, and then a ring and a pinion, and this goes out to your axles. Now, this has been around for over 100 years, and the technology has not changed. As your power is coming through the carrier, it allows your acronyms principle of one tire spinning faster than the other as you're going around a corner. Problem is, when one tire comes off the ground or one has more traction than the other, all the power goes to the tire that has 0 traction. It spins, you lose all traction to the front. So we are upgrading to a limited slip diff, which is a lot more involved. So let's get rid of this thing, use this as a spare, maybe.
Yeah, not a bad idea.
Yeah, we'll throw it in the wherever.
These are pretty cool bolts, like custom bolts that come with the diff.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad at all. Let's see what you think.
It's pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, there's some trickery to this. Not really. This is what we don't want to mess up today, because this is like our starting point. So it's crazy. Like over the years, I've realized what you can do with just, a bit of ingenuity and just some basic tools. Like, I don't have anything crazy here.
Yeah, they make a tool for everything, and it all costs money.
All right. You ready for a lot of parts? So here we are looking at the top half of the limited slip diff. Now this is a clutch plated limited slip diff. Here we see the ramp angles that we're going to be using. We've chosen a 1.5 way diff because this is for your front diff, so we don't want the car to understeer. Here's our deceleration ramp, and here's our acceleration ramp. So as the car accelerates, the dial moves up. This moves against the friction plates. That allows the car to lock up more under acceleration, but under braking, to prevent understeer or unwanted driving conditions, our ramp is steeper. The shallower the angle here, the more work it can do, and spread apart, the more lockup you're gonna get. Okay? But we're gonna keep it tame, because again, like I said, it's for the front diff. We can always tune it later. And that's the advantage of the clutch plated diffs. You can tune them. So you gotta be very careful not to mix up your ramp angles, because then you'll get, undrivable conditions.
So you've marked it so that it goes back in the same spot.
Yeah, I've marked.
It's lined up with the other half?
Yeah, it's lined up with the other half, because if I would to put the other ramp in by accident, which it could be very possible, now I have a different acceleration ramp on my left wheel than I do on my right wheel.
So that's NASCAR stuff.
Yeah, that's going in circles, and I don't think you guys are doing that, are you?
No.
So it's all been pre-oiled, so we're just gonna slide it in. Okay, cool. So here's our first one for this side, and then we're gonna slide this stack. It's very important, and this brass shim is unique to this diff, that it's centered. If it's off center and you press your cover on and it's brass, you may actually be able to tighten the bolts down and not realize. And this is your flange that your half shaft bolts up to. So here, imagine going through the housing, the bolt comes through and bolts into there. And that holds your flange to your diff. That's all oiled up. Yep. So you felt it go through there. That's tight. There we go. So I have to clean all these because there's oil on them.
I never thought of that.
That works quite well. Yeah. And aluminum seems to scream no sooner than the steel, right? So I'm just pulling this gear in, and then I'll have to take it all out again.
Okay, so you'd call this your center section?
Yeah.
And we didn't really get into any of this
Nope.
because the shafts come out as a whole and they're...
Yeah, so what you do is you take your shift linkage here. So you take one of those out, the one for reverse gear, then your input shaft. You remove reverse gear, which is in here.
Okay.
Yep, it's the idler gear. And there's the reverse gear synchro, is that little aluminum piece. This is the dowel that reverse gear slides on. This is reverse gear idler, and this is your reverse gear synchronizer. Well, it's a synchronizer not in the sense that it engages the gear, but it slows down the gear to allow it to engage, yeah. So this is where our oil seal runs on this surface. So when we slide our input shaft through, we have to be very careful we don't dislodge the spring on the back side. And something we'll look for when we turn the case over.
Do you lay awake at night going, did I do that? Like,
Oh man.
like all the time?
Yeah, unless
Yeah,
I have
can't stand
unless I have a beer. Tightening down lightly. So we give the sealant about a half hour before we torque it down. Okay. Cool. And that's our dowel. So we'll let that dry. We'll get at 6th and 5th.
What gear is this?
This is 6th gear.
6th gear?
This is the same gear. And you'll notice these ridges here. And this one has the fillets. So these commonly fracture.
Yeah.
And so therefore our point of weakness. So by machining that down, you reduce the risk of those bits, hardened bits, right, floating around. So the next step will be to place our front diff into the housing, because we want to be able to retain the pinion gear in the shaft. Because when we take this off, the pinion gear will drop. So
You could just lay it down.
the ball bearings will still fall out.
Really?
Yes.
Okay,
Because they're
that's
loose.
good to
They're
know.
loose.
Oh, okay, I
yeah.
see.
As a matter of fact, you should probably take an extra 23 with you to the track, because you don't want to look for those in the dark.
Crazy.
So it looks like we have a pretty good pattern. I made sure the backlash was pretty tight, like still within spec, but on the tighter side, like competition, and you'll see that you get closer to the toe of the tooth. If we would have changed, let's say, the final drive on this transmission, put in a 3.7, for example, so
Yep.
a different pinion, we would have to shim all 4 bearings.
Okay, and just because you've already checked the tooth on this diff, you had it assembled already, you're happy to put
Yeah.
it in. All right,
Let's put it in.
let's put it in.
Yeah. You got it there?
I got it.
Okay. So there's a shim right there.
Oh yeah.
This is, I think they call it S1. There's your shim. This one was 1 millimeter thick.
They tell you what shim to put in it, and then
Well, there's a procedure. So you start with these 2 shims here, each 0.6 of a mil. You stack them. You take the shim off of the one side. Only put this one. There's a certain preload. I think it's 1/4 mil.
okay,
You add all these numbers together. You get a total number for each side.
okay.
So because there's an O-ring on this, no sealant.
So we have a temperature sensor on that hose. So as
Do
soon as
you?
it's up to temp, then it turns the pump on.
Very nice. Can you log that on your Holly?
Yeah.
That would be a good one to log.
Yeah.
Different tracks, tighter tracks, diff's gonna work more.
Okay.
Something to talk about, it'd be cool.
We were wondering what size tires to put on, and we have 10-inch wide on the front and 8-inch wide at the back. Because of the understeer, you want more traction in the front. Introduce some oversteer at the back.
Yeah, so stagger is common in like inherently unbalanced cars, like an Audi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they can't just do that.
Right?
Yeah.
Like when you're doing rod bolts, it's like, why am I doing angles? So our diff is in, our side cover is bolted up and torqued, and we have what feels like the right amount of backlash, and we can measure that. That should be around 0.1, 0.15 mil.
It feels like 0.1.
Yeah, definitely, right? Yeah, 100%.
Now you supply a lot of a lot of parts, dog boxes. Do you supply these tools too?
Those are reused stainless steel BMW hose clamps.
Oh, so
I can supply.
I don't know if I can afford those.
They might be in a scrapyard. I mean, a lot of BMWs made in the scrapyard. They actually should all be in the scrapyard. The backlash like should be set. It's set.
And it's gonna stay.
It's gonna stay.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're shaving off
The
here.
friction of the bearings, that'll change because these are new.
Yeah. Beauty.
So we're gonna work on 6th and 5th gear, then the center diff, which is good to go. This one is pretty robust. There we go.
Got it.
So that just retains this bearing race from coming up. This is for the needle bearing, you don't want to forget that. There's a needle bearing inside the gear, and it sits in that little retaining ring.
That's pretty small needle.
Yeah. There we go.
This is 6th gear?
Yeah. Yes. So they pop up. That's how they are. So when we put the hub on,
Okay.
it'll be fine. There's little holes in there that retain the spring.
Okay.
One thing we're looking for here is that these synchro teeth are not rounded off. It's rounded off, so it's from a high kilometer car.
Yeah.
And you can feel that they're pretty rough. Some guys can file them down, but the problem, then you start compromising the case hardening on them.
So yeah, but you're also increasing the risk of it popping out, right? Because there's not much there to hold
The
it.
depth is different.
So the shift fork has an orientation, different orientation. It's not symmetrical, so you want to make sure when you take it apart, you mark it. So a good way to do that is either put it down the way you took it out, or put a red dot on top. There's different orientations to these gears. They're not symmetrical, right?
Really?
Yeah. So you'll have this collar comes up higher.
Oh, okay.
than this one.
Yep. Yeah, I see that.
Just little things like that. So yeah, we got to heat that up. Whew. There we go.
And you'll notice he's using a brass hammer. Don't be stupid. It's got, that's where the spines
are lined up.
Yep.
Okay. See, this one's been modified. This one's been ground down.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Sounds good. Sounds pretty crispy, doesn't it?
Yep.
Okay, so now we'll put our dowel in. The dowel hole won't line up, so to, you know, save yourself lots of hammering. So I've had a customer lose one of these in the transmission, so we can safety wire it in. This is 5th gear, yeah. We're just making sure that's tucked in. So we're gonna slide that on top. And then these 3 prongs line up with the 3 here. So we just have to heat this up so it slides onto this bad boy here. And they heat up pretty nice. A little piece of aluminum. Get gear. And the reason the input shaft is moving is because it's not fastened to the next part of the case.
So we're not getting this apart without some 3-job pullers at the track.
Yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare to be honest.
Yeah, yeah.
Good. Damn. There we are.
I was noticing the gears are different, but when you lift up on it, there you go. So that's because this is not sitting up against this bearing here.
Yeah, that worked out great. So we'll put the last cover on, and this is where the center differential sits in here, and this is what covers 5th and 6th. So we'll go ahead and bolt that on. Here's the bearing race that will manage both radial and axial loads.
Oh,
So your axial load on the ball bearing here,
Yeah.
and then your radial loads here. So it's a dual race. It's kind of cool.
Right on.
Ball bearing will manage the axial load, and the rollers will manage the radial load. Very, very German. Some engineers will be like, oh, I see that application all the time. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah? Bam.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we actually get our drive flanges, we can turn it.
The magic in between here is pretty cool. So there's no spiders.
There's a set of thrust washers in here, and based on how you changed the thickness of those washers will determine the torque split. From what I understand, the torque split will be 60 rear, 40 front. The RS2 would have had that torque split. It was an outright performance car. It had big Brembos, big turbo.
Okay.
It was an Autobahn car. So this is our wheels turning forward.
Yeah. And the limited slip is working because both axles are turning. All you're moving when you're shifting gears is a shift collar that connects this gear to the gear that's spinning down below. So when you pull that up, now this is locked solid. When you go back down again, this center gear isn't attached to anyone.
So we're not in gear right now. So this is just free spinning.
So it's bringing the power all the way through.
So it's coming through the input shaft, which is this one. Engages the output shaft here.
Okay.
Then this spline connects to the casing.
Okay.
Which then in turn connects to our pinion gear. So there's a groove there in the middle. So these splines here will drive the front wheels, and these splines here will drive the back wheels, and it's all distributed through this torsion system.
So this one's turning, it goes through here,
Yeah,
and then comes back down to that one.
which drives our output shaft.
Very cool.
And it gives you a torque split between front and rear. Yeah. This is what you have to do to get traction.
So with the little wizardry that's going on in between here, it senses a torque difference between front and back. And the way you've explained it is that 60% goes to the back and 40 goes to the front. On the torsion diff, if I lift one back tire off the ground, that tire in the air will get all the, will just spin.
Yeah.
And that's huge no-nos because when it lands again, it's essentially going faster than the other side through the spider.
So there's shock loading.
So there's massive shock loading. So this would make a terrible rally car.
That would not be good for a rally car. No.
Oh,
So
okay.
rally cars exclusively use clutch plated diffs. And that's one of the primary reasons.
So you're telling me the Audi can never be a rally car?
It can. There are some wizards in Europe that make complete driveline systems, like you see in Ken Block's car.
Okay.
In his Ford, I believe that transmission was made by Sadev, and they have engineered all that wizardry to do the correct torque splits.
I think we just make a phone call and like, hey, we want to turn our car into a rally car.
Can you give us your spare parts transmission?
That's unfortunate. That is a downfall of. So it's perfect for road racing, keeping your tires on the ground.
Yeah.
Not so good for all.
But for the rear, you can get a clutch plated diff. Like Almar will make the same diff that goes in the front for the rear, and with the wizardry of the thrust washers in the Torsen diff, you'll be able to get that torque split 60-40, so 60 rear, 40 front. If you tune your shocks or have the ability to tune shocks, I bet you that Torsen's going to do well in the back.
Good. All right.
Just clean in there. Bearings are free. Okay, looks good. So we're going to put in our bearing race here.
Yeah, that's
Standard. Fair amount of material. We checked the races and everything but the one on the diff was pretty good, so. So that keeps the magnet situated so you don't have to glue it or anything like that. Here's the bearing race that we showed earlier, and it's already slid onto the shaft, so it's on. But as we drive this bolt through, this 12-sided bolt, it'll drive that race down. So that sits right here.
and a nice access hole to get at a bolt that nobody has a socket for.
Oh, we got sockets for that.
Yeah, you do.
Napa sells a kit. XZN fasters, they call them.
Okay.
Maybe it was $40, so not cheapest, but that's what I use. That race has come out of the case, so we just have to drive that nut a little further. Oh yeah, so this is the trick. Now we start tightening so you engage 2 gears at once. So you grab a long screwdriver, you just select 2 gears. So there's one, okay, let's do this one. There we go. So all I've done is select 2 gears.
So these are the two bearings going against each other. Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be
And
the
then
bearing
the race is
in the case.
Yeah, yeah.
So we can see the
rollers on the outside. Yeah, that's super cool.
this race has now slid down through the case.
Yep.
And is engaged on the balls and the rollers.
Right on.
So Johns, this little guy, believe it or not, acts as a oil passage. You would think it's never going to fit, but you push it sideways, push it through up to get the spigot in through the bolt, and then there's a flange there that lines up with that cutout. Bam, that's your oil supply. Now we're going to put our center differential in, and that's just going to slide on, right, at some point. And here's actually a harmonic balancer for your transmission. So here's a preload, another Belleville washer. So you would have seen this in the clutch plated diff. So this sets your preload. So it goes in like that. And then we have this washer that goes over. So now we have to fasten our dry flange for the rear housing. We may have to use the press for this. Yours did not have an O-ring on it. It was not on the shaft, so I will donate you this one here. We have to press this without damaging the oil seal through.
You only press that out to get at the seal.
Yes, and I wanted to check all this stuff in here.
Okay. All right, so
So
if we were to take it off, we could just take it off. And that's pretty cool that comes with it, and zero risk of damaging the output chassis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you could take that off. Like another thing you could service when the case is in the car. So the front diff you could service.
Yeah.
Barely any force. I just used my hand to press that in. The rear, you know what? The center diff you could take out. No, I don't think you'd ever need to.
Takes about 20 minutes to pull the engine, 15.
That's pretty sweet.
You can like stand behind the engine and
Yeah.
take the bell housing bolts off, and then it's the exhaust, the fuel system, which is the intake. You just take a whole intake, flop it over, and then the mounts, and then like you just pull the front bumper. There's no rad. There's another couple of coolant hoses, and then 2 connections on the wiring harness, and you just lift her up. An hour, you should be able to have it like a new engine in it.
Nice.
Yeah.
You bringing a spare?
Yeah, we're building a spare.
Okay.
Now it's over.
Yeah. What we'll do is we'll grab the bolts and we'll slowly start pulling it down.
That blows my mind how that rubber is doing anything. I thought it was just like keep dirt out.
Oh yeah, it's going. Okay, torque these to 25 millimeter. We got to do up our dry flanges. So first the seals, and then we do our shift mechanism.
And that's it.
And then she's done. So the speed pickup is not mechanical, it's a Hall sensor. So these are something to be careful about. These tapered bolts,
Yeah.
they do like to walk loose.
I've had to like retorque my.
They were loose.
Axle?
It was loose.
Yeah.
It was actually, the seal wasn't even sealing anymore.
Really.
So I wonder, I don't know what's happened there, just the one side. But both sides are loose. One side was loose enough that oil was coming through.
Because that's our welded axle. I'll definitely check it. All our axle bolts, front and back, these ones,
Yeah.
keep walking loose. Loctited, the double jam lock nuts, every time we gotta retake
Did you
them.
use a Nord lock?
Yeah, Nord lock, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
And
and
you
they still
still
came loose, yeah.
It might be worthwhile going OEM for that bolt.
Yeah,
If that's
okay.
your problem.
Okay.
The-
No, this bolt was OEM. This is the
No, yeah,
ones
but
around the outside.
You might just
no.
have to go get 6 of those and
Yeah, but it's
Like
I
the-
replaced 12, 24.
Oh, yeah.
So they're probably $8 each.
yeah. But if they don't fall out,
Yeah, that's true.
then you should be good.
That's true. I watched Joe do this in the automatic transmission rebuild.
Yeah.
Yeah. How deep are we going?
Let's confirm here.
I think a bit more.
I go more than that.
Want to bottom it out or? Is there a groove on that? That's fine.
That's perfect.
That's what I thought. I didn't say anything, but.
Just gotta undo the gear. There we go. So it makes a little tunnel through there. So that was 90 degrees, so 10 Newton meters.
That's not so
Oh,
bad.
that feels good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other side.
Yep. Nice backlash.
Yeah. That is pretty cool because I never did that before.
No. Yeah. There's your LSD right there. Nice. Right. Fairly simple. Yeah.
So that's the detent that's messing with us.
You think so?
I think so. That because the shifter linkage goes on here.
Onto this. Yeah.
Interesting. Click. Double check that.
And then while you're doing that, I need a monkey wrench. So I just took the reverse sensor out so I wouldn't jam anything up.
Okay.
So this is imagine the shift lever in its neutral state. So if you were to move it forward, you'd be third gear, right?
Yeah.
And back it's fourth. So third, fourth, all the way in. That's reverse. It feels really good.
I think it feels way better for some, and I don't know why, because you didn't really mess with the synchros or anything, right? This is easy,
Yeah, that's the way it should be.
Yeah, it should just drop right in. So I think we're gonna be in much better shape.
Now the beauty of a synchro gearbox is that even going up a gear, if you had a poor linkage, you could go from third to fourth, but maybe hit second instead.
Yeah.
So the synchros will not engage unless the speed between the gears has been reduced so the gear engages, right?
Right.
That's what a synchro does. It slows down the shaft so the gears can bind. On a dog box, it will engage.
Oh, okay.
So not only will you blow up your gearbox, you will over rev your motor and ping your valves into the pistons.
But yeah, no, perfect.
Thanks, guys.
That was excellent. You swing by the shop and
Absolutely.
we'll show you the Audi. I feel much better about that shifting, that I'm not too worried about the shifter itself actually. Very cool. Really nice little hum to it.
So smooth.
6 in a row, make it go.
Should race this against the Quattro.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same generation of car.
That'd be interesting because you're 240 to the wheel?
I think it was 220.
220? Okay. But you're 2,200 pounds.
Yes.
We're probably like 3,400 pounds
Yeah.
and then double the horsepower.